You're listening to Art of the Possible, your go-to podcast for all things pivotal and current in digital transformation, bridging the physical and digital with revolutionary solutions. In each episode, hosts Tony and Ken discuss how some of the world's biggest challenges are being solved through digitization, offering actionable insights to help you with your digital transformation journey. Let's dive into what's possible. Here's your host, Ken Sickles.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Art of the Possible, a Digimarc podcast. I'm your host, Ken Sickles, and today I'm absolutely thrilled to be talking to Patricia Torres from Omron. And we are going to talk about what is just a fascinating topic, I think, and that is industrial automation. And we're going to talk about some of the challenges that are being faced by manufacturers, as well as what's driving the challenges. Why are they doing this? What are some of the benefits they get? How are they solving these problems? All sorts of good things. But there's no doubt industrial automation is a topic today because there's a lot of pressure on brand owners. Whether you're making cosmetics or potato chips, I think everyone is under pressure to comply with new regulations, to streamline their operations, to make better products, to meet consumer expectations, to be more sustainable. The amount of pressure that brand owners are under has increased quite a bit over the past decade, I think is a fair statement to make. And, as brand owners often will, as companies often will, when they're under pressure, when they're facing new issues and challenges, they will look to technology to solve that problem. And that's what we're going to spend our podcast time on today. So let's get started. I think before we go too far, Patricia, again, great to be here with you. You and I have done a webinar together. We're making plans to go sit on the beach next time we have one of these conversations.
Exactly, with the wine.
Yes, with a little bit of wine. Absolutely. Maybe we can start. Yeah, introduce yourself and tell us all a little bit about Omron.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Ken. It's a pleasure for me to have this conversation, this chat with you again. Well, I'm Patricia Torres. I work in Omron. I've been working in industrial automation for the last, 15 years or so. I'm an electrical engineer. I work in marketing. I've been doing, all sorts of different activities, business development, sales. So I've been around. I've been working manufacturing facilities since I started my career after university. And, industrial automation and robotics is something I work for, and I am very happy to be talking about, sharing some of the experience and things I've learned over this more than a decade.
Right. And I know Omron has some really fascinating technology that can contribute to industrial automation and all of the use cases surrounding that. Do you want to maybe just talk about Omron a little bit, give them a nice little for our listeners?
Sure. Omron is a Japanese company. It was founded in 1933 by Patricia Torres in Japan. And we are specialized in industrial automation and providing solutions to overcome those challenges. And we have a motto in the company, like we innovate driven by social needs. So that's everything that we do in this company, developing the technology and the type of things that you do, solutions that we invest in and research and co-create with our customers are with a clear objective of solving social issues for nowadays. One of those, for sure, is sustainability, the human collaboration, and everything that we do is it has that imprint. It's in our DNA.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the reasons I love working with you and your colleagues is that's something you share in common with Digimarc, right? We're very mission oriented and we love solving really big societal type of problems with our very cool, unique technology. But we'll save some of that for another day. Let's get back to the topic of industrial automation for a moment. I thought, when we did our webinar, you had some great insight into why it's become such a hot topic today, right? What our listeners who are trying to learn a little bit more, what are the pressures they're under? Why are they here to learn?
Yeah, well, industrial automation and robotics started years ago in different industries, and people probably will think about very highly automated things that, things that they can see like in YouTube videos. But the reality is that you can automate things uh, uh, without like devices as well. What we're talking about in industrial automation is about optimizing the processes and you're making things much more efficiently with less cost, right? That's been around and that has been one of the key points on industrial automation, why brand owners and manufacturers are looking for automation. It's just increasing throughput, increasing efficiency, operational excellence, that kind of thing. That's common. We've been working on that for that. But then there are all the components that have been arising over the years. One of them is the sustainability part, and the pressure from regulators. There are things that in the past you could solve it with humans, with mechanical things, with some of the strategies. But now you can't afford that because there are too many things, too many variables, playing to achieve the same result, but with less waste, less cost, less time, and less people. Because one of the other biggest challenges that now we're seeing from our customers in manufacturing is that we don't have a lot of labor anymore. People are not really, people are retiring. The people that actually made the manufacturing facilities are retiring right now. And new people are, not very interested in getting a career in manufacturing. So you have a scarcity of labor, both for mundane and, very simple tasks, but also for very high skilled labor or tasks, sorry. So this is where industrial automation and technology comes to save the day and say, hey, okay, we really need to make sure what kind of things can we help you out with, because you won't have a human to do it. It's not available anymore, or because the regulators are demanding you certain things, or the consumer behavior have changed over time. So now you're migrating from mass production model to made by me, made for me, high mix low volume kind of stuff. You need to adapt all those things. So you need to get flexibility in your manufacturing. And that flexibility is where the industrial automation plays a big part. Adding that flexibility and solving that problem with the workforce that we have right now. And the other problem, sustainability, because that's also, we need technology to help us solve and keep alive in this planet, basically.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I hadn't considered too much the personalization aspect and factories being required to be so much more adaptable and flexible, to use your words, is probably something that, depending on the sector that you're in, maybe more of a bigger driver than in other sectors. I'm thinking in certain apparel industries like shoes, right? Sneakers, that sort of thing. I know my daughter just bought a pair of shoes that she designed and personalized online, right? She got to choose the colors and all of that. And it was really interesting. When I was a kid, you went to Sears and Roebuck and you got one of the 2 pairs of sneakers they had. So our kids are kind of lucky, but that's a really interesting point. What are, inside the factories when you get started with this? You mentioned sustainability is one thing that you're trying to address. Personalization another. What sort of issues are these factories running into with the lack of skilled labor, with trying to meet regulations, all of that? Are there some examples you can give of specific challenges that can be overcome with automation?
Yes, for instance, we start talking about, coming from the consumer behavior, the consumer, purchasing behavior that we have now, to the example that you just put. The fact that you need to make sure to capture that set of data from someone that wants a personalized item, that's a huge part of a data collection that needs to be translated into the manufacturing facility somehow. So basically, the line has to understand the manufacturing, the operation needs to understand exactly what is the implication of this or that color or this design. Because most of them, basically, the sneakers are basically the same. The line probably is more or less the same, but then up to a certain point, they start what we call the late customization. So some part of the line is to be very flexible enough to put the yellow and red plus the signature of your daughter, or different colors of the component of the lasers, or things like that. All the personal high and very late customization. That's something that demands a completely different model on production, that needs to be highly automated, because still you don't want to go broke trying to make those personalization exactly right. So the benefit of the economies of scale when you do mass production, yeah, that's great. But now you have less and less. You have what we call the batch size one. Is the batches before were like thousands. So probably you have like maybe 10, 20, sometimes one, just like in the case you say. That's one thing. But still, if you do that, you need to make sure that your product is still perfect and to the quality standards that you are up to. You don't want your daughter to have the sneakers, ripped off after 2 uses. So you need to make sure that is still the manufacturer is right, and is done correctly, and it's up to your quality standards, because that's also a brand reputation implication on that, or safety sometimes. Safety around the consumer. So then that's from the quality part. Another example is if you need to make sure how to get how your supply chain will change to make sure that pair of sneakers will arrive to your daughter's house. That's a different setup that the traditional thousands of sneakers sent to retailer store. So we're talking about e-commerce operations, probably a lot of more outsourcing capabilities that you normally had in-house. So sometimes you just move that outside your world, and you have more people in your state applied. And for that, you need to take control, and still you won't lose the data. You don't want to lose the data and the traceability in tracking what's happening after it leaves the factory. That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's interesting. It makes me think, Mark Andreessen, the famed venture capitalist, early on, a proponent of Netscape and bringing the web to us all, said about a dozen years or so ago, software is eating the world. And I think this is a great example of, we think of a traditional manufacturing facility, right? And how mechanical almost that they have to be, being, kind of succumbing to the pressures of the software and digital world around them, and having to blend into that. Are there specific industries that you're seeing being impacted more than others by this, Patricia? Is it across the board?
Well, I cannot just pick one, but just think about the amount of different flavors of food and beverages that we have now, right? So before we had, I don't know, simple example, that thing that we like a lot, craft beers. The amount of craft beers and flavors and things, and the packaging, all the implications of having that personalization, or that amount of variety that you have in your portfolio, that has a direct impact. You still have your traditional beer, lovely, and those big facilities exist at high speed and everything. But then you have a campaign for these late music festivals. So your packaging and your container will have a different type of setup of colors and things. That's a little bit of personalization. It's still the same beer. You will have to manufacture, to quality standards and everything. But then the packaging and everything around it, and probably the channel that you're selling it to is different. And there is where you need to make sure that you do those operations is still very profitable. I mean, optimize to the maximum and get the throughput out right, so you don't lose money. That you need to make that balance all the time. Automation is helping for that. It's designed for that. That was actually basically the reason why we started automating things, to try to make things better, faster, and more efficient, and easily cheaper.
Right. And that's why, not only do I thoroughly enjoy spending time with you, Patricia, but I think the partnership between our companies is so important, right? We recently launched our partnership around our flagship tool called Digimark Automate, which combines, Omron's world-class leading machine vision systems and everything behind them with our really cool capability, digital watermarks, And the two together, I think, are uniquely positioned to solve a lot of these automation issues that you've been talking about, whether it's quality, whether it is, sustainability, right? One of the interesting things about our solution is we have customers out there who want to make their packaging more sustainable. A great way to do that is get rid of that plastic little sleeve, right? That goes around plastic bottles. Um, and our watermarks can go directly onto those plastic bottles, as an example, where other technologies you might struggle to have your identification, your data carrier on that packaging. And I think, those unique combination of things across all sorts of different industries and different challenging environments, whether it's really cold or really dusty, and or you've got oddly shaped things. I think it's kind of an exciting time to be able to address these problems with new solutions and new technologies that we're all focused on. Um, and I think, to me, this innovation in industrial automation is really, really interesting. What are some of the things that when you think about the type of innovation that our companies are doing together, certainly other companies are as well, where do you think this kind of takes us? Could you maybe think about the future a little bit and some of the exciting opportunities it provides for customers who adopt these really cool technologies?
Well, I will, a little bit of history here. When I viewed Digimart in a congress and say, immediately I thought, well, I think we have a future here because there are some problems that if we, partner together, we're going to solve easily because you could be struggling in some way to get things, into the manufacturing facility. We can probably struggling trying to find something, a data carrier that will allow to, perform the operations more efficiently, like the inspection and quality checks and also traceability and everything, all along the value chain. Because remember, we're trying to make our economy circular, but for that circularity, you need beautiful track and trace system and all the data get into every step. And I saw that, and I think the future is like it looks very promising because up to now there were a lot of limitations on industrial automation to solve some issues, especially in the inspection, identification, or traceability of certain type of products because of the nature of the traditional data carriers that we used to have. Obviously, our systems can read and identify and work with any data carrier. The extra thing that digital watermarks are adding to the equation is something that opens up completely new ways or a new world of possibilities to do things with that. Like, for instance, solving the problem, one typical problem when in a line, if you're using the visible data carrier, the 1D or 2D, they're put in one specific place of the container. So if you're in a line running on speed, you either to do two things to try to identify and to actually read it. You put a multiple cameras, I mean, as much as you can to set the picture, to take pictures and then compare the image to try to identify the product. You can miss more than one product at a time because sometimes it happens. It depends on the speed. Or you slow down the line, you reposition whatever the container, the item, and then you take the picture, 1, 2, 3, whatever, and then you speed up again. So you have in between things, you have to modify your line to try to solve one thing that is sometimes is not possible in reality. So you have to invest in more bulky things, mechanical stuff, to actually do things. With digital watermarks printed all over the surface of the container, and being not visible, that is not altering and interfering with it. It doesn't matter. It's just like you don't have to put extra things with one camera or two cameras on whatever you want to put, or per component of the container, depending on what you want. And off you go. You just send that through Ethernet or through communication to the controller, and you can do whatever you want with that data. So this enablement of having that data without affecting the efficiency of the process is something that I see will open a lot of opportunities and it will solve a lot of problems at the industry. And the other future is, can you imagine that we can, as a brand owner, you can actually know all the journey of the container from the moment it's made and somewhere in a blow molding facility or somewhere, after is recovered, hopefully recycled into something else, and be able to show that to the regulators, the consumers, and anyone that it is interested in saying, hey, we have manufactured 3,000 bottles. Those 3,000 we recovered, those 3,000 that have been made into another 3,000 bottles or something else. Or, I mean, we prevented 3,000 bottles to be leaked to the environment. That thing, I think, is invaluable, to be honest. So far, we can't have that was up to now. We didn't have that opportunity to have that traceability end to end.
Yeah, I mean, it really is amazing, right? I mean, think about all of the things that we just talked about here, from, automating your factory to create efficiencies, to drive consumer safety, to, enabling new business models through personalization and or direct to consumer, and then all the way through the product's life cycle, from, track and trace operations, improvement in efficiencies in logistics and distribution, to end of life. It really is, it's innovative. It's almost a revolution, really, when you think about it, that is coming to manufacturing. And I think there's a lot of exciting times ahead. But, before we get all excited, we have to think about, would you have any advice, Patricia, for how our listeners could get started on this really cool journey we just talked about?
Well, everybody is trying to look for automation for different reasons, but especially in this part, inspection systems or the quality or the identification of items. That's something that typically what happens is that you have a system per thing that you want to check. When you have this combination of our technology with the GMARC technology, you can perform more than one thing. I mean, many things at the same time at speed. You don't have to invest in different things to put out together. So with the two things together combined, you got a quality check. You have the full functionality, the comprehensive check, quality, inspection, functionality, data that you probably in the past would have to do in different stages, different vendors, different ways, or not at all, right? That which is the worst case. So you perform the very basics. I mean, the minimum quality checks, because that's good enough to go. But then you can just open and to have like a comprehensive, holistic approach on inspection, quality, and traceability with that. So the I think it is the partnership, the way we can get into the real money, along the value chain, is what we call a game changer. We're changing the thing. I think the very first step is just coming to us and ask, okay, tell me your problems. What is the problem? Is your problem sustainability? Is the problem in your circularity? Is the problem in your reporting to the regulator? Is the problem the recovery? Is the problem the quality check? I mean, along the line, along the value chain, you have issues. And the beauty of the watermarking, technology, is that together we can solve, depending on which stage, we can solve many of those in different ways. So the first step is basically identifying exactly what you are trying to achieve or get rid of. Typically, if you were talking about waste, you have a lot of waste of product and packaging at your manufacturing facility, we have a solution to that. Or if it's a logistics operation, you're going in through e-commerce or personalization, just like we were talking, and you don't know exactly how to start it. Yes. Normally what we do is we go and check. We do a walk around and we do an assessment. And we start talking. We like to do something we call co-creation. So we basically co-create the solutions with our customers. Now we have a partnership that will allow us to co-create in a bigger scale on that.
Right. That's something we do very much here at Digimark as well. We have a long history of that. And I think our listeners just heard, if you have any problems, please reach out to Patricia. She'd be happy to talk to you about that. No, I'm kidding, of course. But I think it's great advice to get started. Really reach out to Omron, reach out to Digimark, and we will work with you to understand your problems. And then we can talk about what the best solution might be to them and how to get started in a specific way. And one last question for you, Patricia, and maybe more of an assumption I'd like you to validate. I think it might be a fair assumption that whatever level of industrial automation you have today, especially in your factories, if you have some or if you have none, with everything that's changing in the world, this is something that is going to happen to you, whether you wait to let it happen to you or whether you take the initiative and get started now. I think you might end up with a completely different experience. And I would probably recommend trying to get started now rather than waiting for it to happen to you. But is that a fair kind of statement to make, do you think, Patricia?
Yes. And to be honest, we've seen that before. When you wait too much to solve some things because you're not sure about certain thing, if this technology will be the right one or will be popular or people will be adopting this, then by the time you made a decision, it's already too late, and you will probably have to spend more money, resources, and time trying to solve the same issue, right? Also, thinking about sustainability, think about the regulations. You have deadline. And if your manufacturing facility or your operations are kind of complex and not that, with different levels of automation, you better start early because you can't wait too much until you have to produce a report. And you can put patches here and there. But in my experience, that's not very recommended because in the end, you will end up with a mess.
Yes, I 100% agree. And I think, getting started now is great advice. And out of all the things you mentioned, if for no other reason, we only have one planet. And if everyone could work together to stop throwing all sorts of plastic in landfills and oceans that end up in our bodies and everywhere else, I think that would be a fantastic reason to get started on this journey. Thank you very, very much, Patricia, for joining us today. It's fun as always. As promised, we will do our next recording from the beach in Spain with a nice glass of wine in hand. And thank you, to all of our listeners. Appreciate your attention and your time. Please like, share, and subscribe, and tune in for the next episode of Art of the Possible. Take care, Patricia.
Thank you very much, Ken. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Art of the Possible. The show notes include links to any resources mentioned in today's show. If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave us a 5-star review.